Ma is taken from the word mriti or death. So the word pavarga signifies our struggle for existence and our meeting with defeat, exhaustion, bondage, fearfulness, and at last death. Apavarga means that which can nullify all of these material conditions. Krishna is said to be the giver of apavarga, the path of liberation. For the impersonalists and enemies of Krishna, liberation means merging into the Supreme. The demons and the impersonalists do not care for Krishna, but Krishna is so kind that he gives this liberation even to his enemies and to the impersonalists. There is the following statement in this connection. O Murari Krishna, how wonderful it is that although the demons who are always envious of the demigods have failed to penetrate your military phalanx, they have penetrated the region of Mitra, the sun globe. The word Mitra is used metaphorically. Mitra means the sun globe, and Mitra also means friend. The demons who opposed Krishna as enemies wanted to penetrate his military phalanx, but instead of doing this, they died in battle. And the result was that they penetrated the planet of Mitra, or the sun planet. In other words, they entered into the Brahman effulgence. The example of the sun planet is given here because the sun is ever illuminating like the spiritual sky, where there are innumerable illuminating Vaikuntha planets. The enemies of Krishna were killed, and instead of penetrating Krishna's phalanx, they entered into the friendly atmosphere of the spiritual effulgence. That is the mercy of Krishna, and therefore he is known as the deliverer of his enemies also. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai. Shri Prabhupada Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What verse is it? Okay, so I'll read all of them until the 18th and then. Okay. I'm reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, Text 16. So should I just do the Sanskrit translation till the 18th myself? Okay. Santushtasya nirihasya svatmaramasya yatsukam kutastat kamalobhena davato hayadishaha. One who is content and satisfied and who links his activities with the Supreme Personality of Godhead residing in everyone's heart enjoys transcendental happiness without endeavoring for his livelihood. Where is such happiness for a materialistic man who is impelled by lust and greed, and who therefore wanders in all directions without desire to accumulate wealth? Text 17. Sada santushta manasa sarva shiva maya disha sarkara kantakadpiyo yatapanad padamishivam. For a person who has suitable shoes on his feet, there's no danger even when he walks in pebbles and thorns. For him, everything is auspicious. Similarly, for one who's always self-satisfied, there is no distress. Indeed, he feels happiness everywhere. Text 18, we can do this together then. Santushta kena varajan navarte tapivarina opastya jaivya karpanyat griha palyayate janaha santushta kena varajan navarte tapivarina opastya jaivya karpanyat griha palyayata yate janaha santushtaha kena varajan Navarteta pivarina. Opastya jaivya karpanyat. Grihapalya yate janaha. Santushta kena varajan. Navarteta pivarina. Opastya jaivat karpanyat. Grihapala yate janaha. Santushta kena varajan. Navartita pivarina. Opastya jaivya karpanyat. Grihapala yate janaha. Santushtaha. A person is always self-satisfied. Kena, why? Va, or. Rajan, O king. Na, not. Vartita, should live happily. Api, even. Varina, by drinking water. Opastya, due to the genitals. Javya, and the tongue. Karpanyat, because of a wretched or miserly condition. Griha palayate, he becomes exactly like a household dog. Janaha, such a person. Translation. My dear king, a self-satisfied person can be happy even with only drinking water. However, one who is driven by the senses, especially by the tongue and genitals, must accept the position of a household dog to satisfy his senses. Please repeat. My dear king, a self-satisfied person can be happy even with only drinking water. However, one who is driven by the senses, especially by the tongue and genitals, must accept the position of a household dog to satisfy his senses. According to the Shastras, a Brahman or a cultured person in Krishna consciousness will not enter anyone's service to maintain body and soul together, and especially not for satisfaction of the senses. A true Brahmin is always satisfied. Even if he has nothing to eat, he can drink little water and be satisfied. Even if he has nothing to eat, this is only a matter of practice. Unfortunately, however, no one is educated in how to be satisfied in self-realization. As explained above, a devotee is always satisfied because he feels the presence of the Supersoul within his heart and thinks of him 24 hours a day. That is real satisfaction. A devotee is never driven by the dictations of the tongue and genitals, and thus he is never victimized by the laws of material nature. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear king, a self-satisfied person can be happy even with only drinking water. However, one who is driven by the senses, especially by the tongue and genitals, must accept the position of a household dog to satisfy his senses. Sorry, I've just been asked to give class without any time to prepare for it, so please bear with me. So in this chapter, Narada Muni is it Narada who's giving instructions about for civilized human beings. And he's describing the activities of a Brahmana and the qualities of a Brahmana in this verse. So one who is self-satisfied can be happy even with only drinking water. This seems a very, very difficult thing to do, to be that satisfied that we can be satisfied by just drinking water without any desire for other things. It doesn't mean that one doesn't want other things, but if that's all there is, then one is satisfied with that. So that's one of the qualities of a Brahmana, is that he's satisfied with whatever he has. He's not trying to endeavor for things that are difficult to obtain. So, like, for example, Sudama Brahman, he was poverty stricken. Actually, he didn't have any food in the house. His wife and children were starving. There was nothing for them. They were really, really poor. But he still was satisfied. He wasn't striving to get some things. It's only because of his wife that she asked him to go to Lord Krishna to get some, to ask him for help. Otherwise, Sudama Brahman would never have gone to Krishna for help, because he was satisfied. That's because he's a Brahmana. Even in that condition, he's satisfied. And but Krishna was happy to give him so much opulence that he couldn't believe how much opulence he got. But it didn't change Sudama Brahmana's mood. He was still satisfied. It wasn't like he was hankering for more and more because he had all that opulence. Because most people, when they get some opulence, they want more and more. This is like a natural greed that happens. But Sudama Brahman is satisfied whether he is in poverty or whether he has so much opulence, he was still satisfied. So because his senses were under control. And this is described by Vamanadev to Bali Maharaj. So when Vamanadev came to Bali Maharaj and asked him for 3 steps of land, Bali Maharaj was thinking, well, I can give you a planet, I can give you, so much opulence, I can give you, so much land, so many cows, so much, wealth and, prosperity. Why are you just asking for me for 3 steps of land, And Vamanadev said, even if one has given all the 3 planetary systems, one will not be satisfied unless his senses are under control. One will not be satisfied even with obtaining the three worlds if his senses are not under control. So in that way, if one is satisfied, he says, if I'm satisfied with 3 steps of land, then I will be satisfied with whatever comes. And that is the mood, because if we're satisfied with very little, then even when a lot comes, then we'll just be still satisfied. It's not that we'll be endeavoring for more and more. So that's actually the key, is that unless our senses are under control, then we're not going to be satisfied, because we're always going to be wanting more and more things, or have material desires. And that's why in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it's described that a jnani is not satisfied, neither is a yogi. A jnani, karmi, yogi, and jnani, they're not satisfied. Only a bhakta is satisfied, because he's in control of his senses and he utilizes everything in Krishna's service. And because he's satisfying Krishna, then he'll be satisfied. We can't be satisfied without satisfying Krishna. So that's why we can understand if we're actually satisfying Krishna. If we've got all these material desires, unfulfilled material desires, and we're hankering and lamenting, and we're endeavoring with great determination to fulfill these material desires, then we know that we're not really satisfying Krishna. But if we're actually feeling satisfied with very little, and we're just happy to do service, then we know we're satisfying Krishna. In the Chaitanya Bhagavatam, there's a part where yesterday I was reading this really nice verse that it's saying that, if I can remember it, that if one who's received the merciful glance of the Lord, then we'll know that when we're actually free from material desires and we're just happy to do service with a pure heart. That's how we know that we've got the Lord's merciful glance. So it's interesting that most people are actually endeavoring, the whole system and the whole modern world is a drive to actually satisfy your senses as much as possible, to try to enjoy your senses as much as possible. And it's not, there's nowhere where it's saying that you should take as little as possible and be satisfied. It's always like you should try to enjoy as many varieties of things as possible and as much variety of sense enjoyment, different eatable things, drinks. As we can see in the supermarkets, when I was a kid, there was basically this many varieties of crisps or this many varieties of drinks. But now you go to the supermarkets and there's like so many different varieties that it's like mind-boggling, to choose from how many different kinds of drinks, how many different kinds of cheeses, how many different types of butters. It's just like endless, because people, they just want to keep trying to satisfy the senses, trying different things to try to satisfy their senses, and they're still not satisfied. So that's why there's so more and more varieties of enjoyment for people's senses, so that they try to enjoy more and more. But the whole point is, for self-realization, we have to become satisfied with what we have and not endeavor for more. Like, that's one of the things in the Nectar of Instruction describes that over endeavoring for mundane achievements which are difficult to obtain, right? And accumulating, overeating and accumulating things more than necessary. Yeah. So these are the do's, don'ts. These are the do nots in the devotional service. But most people are actually aspiring for that. They're doing all the do nots, the don'ts. They're ticking all the don'ts boxes, and so we're trying to do the opposite of what the world is actually endeavoring for. So of course it's going to be difficult, because everywhere we look, people are trying to enjoy their senses, and the senses are being allured into different ways to enjoy. But here Prabhupada says, according to the Shastra, a Brahmana or a cultured person in Krishna consciousness will not enter anyone's service to maintain body and soul together, and especially not for satisfaction of the senses. A true Brahmana is always satisfied. Even if he has nothing to eat, he can drink a little water and be satisfied. And this is only a matter of practice. So it's not that we're automatically become like that, but we can practice it. We can practice to be satisfied with whatever we have and not try to get more and more things. And this is the previous, and I'll just go over the verse 16 as well, and 16 and 17. 16 is one who's content and satisfied and links his activities with the Supreme Personality of Godhead residing in everyone's heart, and enjoys transcendental happiness without endeavoring for his livelihood. Where is such happiness for a materialistic man who's impelled by lust and greed, and who therefore wanders in all directions with a desire to accumulate wealth? So one who's content and satisfied, and who links his activities with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart, actually enjoys transcendental happiness without endeavoring for his livelihood. And so it's not that he's trying to endeavor so much to, have an amazing job, to get lots and lots of money, to try to enjoy his senses and have big, huge house, big cars, and, so much wealth. But he's trying to link his activities with the Lord. So that's actually the main thing. That's how he's satisfied. Because whatever he has, he actually uses it in Krishna's service. He links it, he dovetails it in Krishna's service. And whereas a materialistic man who's like impelled by lust and greed, he wanders in all directions with a desire to accumulate wealth. So that's his main purpose. His main purpose is to accumulate lots of wealth, to try to enjoy his senses. And the next verse is, for a person who has suitable shoes on his feet, there's no danger even when he walks on pebbles and thorns. For him, everything is auspicious. Similarly, for one who's always self-satisfied, there's no distress. Indeed, he feels happiness everywhere. So a person who is self-satisfied, he's happy even if there's nothing for the senses to enjoy. He's still satisfied, and he's not distressed by it. I was just thinking of Yudhisthira Maharaj. Although Yudhisthira Maharaj was like the emperor of the world, he was exiled to the forest with his brothers for like 12, 13 years by Duryodhan, and we can see that although Yudhisthira Maharaj had lost everything, and it was disturbing to the rest of the Pandavas, Yudhisthira Maharaj was actually quite satisfied. He was still quite satisfied in the forest and happy to live on berries and fruits and roots and living with tree bark on, and having practically nothing, He was still satisfied because he was more like a Brahmana. He wasn't really like, he was a Kshatriya because he was a king as well, but he had a Brahminical quality. He was very Brahminical. And that's why he was satisfied living with the sages. He was actually more happier there than in the kingdom. And whereas the other Pandavas were really upset that he'd lost everything, and they were in the forest, trying to find some food to eat, and they were. We can't even imagine how that must be. 1 minute they're living in a palace with everyone, like so much wealth, so much facility, and the next minute they're living in the forest with nothing. Just tree bark and practically nothing, nowhere to live, trying to find roots and fruits to eat. So, but still, Yudhisthira Maharaj was actually quite satisfied in that condition. So, and he was very forgiving, and he was, Draupadi was really upset, and the Pandavas were like saying, you have to get up and go back and try to get the kingdom back. You have to learn, we have to fight and get it back. This is really unfair. But Yudhisthira Maharaj was very forgiving, and he was talking about forgiveness. So these are the qualities of a Brahmana: forgiveness. And so a Brahmana has these qualities of being self-satisfied, forgiving, endeavoring for self-realization in all situations. It's not that he's endeavoring for material enjoyment, material happiness. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. He's not bothered by it. Whatever comes, if it doesn't come or if it comes, he's quite happy with the situation. He's self-satisfied. Atma Rama. So this is actually what real satisfaction is. The internal satisfaction. If we're satisfied internally, then we won't need to try to satisfy our senses externally. And that only comes when we are actually trying to please Krishna. We're trying to establish our lost relationship with Krishna. That's when we're actually will be satisfied, and satisfied in our service. Because here it says that no one is, unfortunately, no one is educated in how to be satisfied in self-realization. As explained above, a devotee is always satisfied because he feels the presence of the Supersoul within his heart and thinks of him 24 hours a day. That is real satisfaction. So this is actually the goal, that we could be thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day within our heart, and just be satisfied in remembering Krishna and serving him. So this will bring about real satisfaction. But no one is, as Prabhupada says, no one is educated in this, in the material world. Only the devotees have this knowledge, and only the devotees have this privilege of Krishna's mercy, that Krishna's helping us to come more and more closer to him. The more we read about him, the more we hear about him, the more we can remember him. The Shravanam and Kirtanam is absolutely necessary. We can't do without it. Unless we are hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna, we're not going to be able to develop love of God. It's just not going to be possible, because that's how we develop it. Because when we always hear and chant about Krishna, then we'll start to remember him. And when we're always remembering Krishna, that's when we'll develop love for him. So Krishna describes that in the Bhagavad Gita, in the verse 410, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha, that being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they attained transcendental love for me. So if this is our goal, then this is the conditions Krishna has laid out. So if we want to develop pure love for Krishna, then we have to become free from attachment, fear, and anger. We have to take full refuge of Krishna and surrender to him. And we have to perform jnana and tapasa. Jnana, knowledge, and tapasa as austerities, and then we become purified. We can't just have theoretical knowledge. We can't just read books. Or, it's like a doctor. He reads a book on, like somebody who's trying to become a doctor. If he just reads a book on medicine and he doesn't practice it, then he's not going to become a doctor, and no one's going to accept him as a doctor. I mean, I wouldn't put my life in somebody's hands who just read a book on medicine and then they have never practiced, they've never actually performed any surgeries. Shishikodantai Mahaprabhu Jai. So a person's only going to become a doctor, accepted doctor, if he practices what he's read, what he's studied. So just by reading, just by having the gyan, it doesn't mean that we actually understand. And so we have to put it into practice, and that's the austerity. That tapasa has to be there. We have to practice what's in the books, and then the vigyan will come, the realized knowledge will come, and then we'll become purified. And then Krishna says, when after the purification, then many, many persons in the past became purified of knowledge of me, and thus they attained transcendental love for me. So first of all, we have to know about Krishna, know about devotional service, know what we should and shouldn't do, and then we can actually practice this. We have to put it into practice, and then we can start developing some love for Krishna. But it doesn't just come. We have to put it into practice. So, and that's what Prabhupada says here, that we have to practice, that this is only a matter of practice. We have to practice all this, and then we'll become self-satisfied, and then we'll just be satisfied with whatever we have. And our main goal, because our main goal is to satisfy Krishna's senses. As long as we try to satisfy our own senses, we're not going to be satisfied. So when we try to satisfy Krishna's senses, then that's actual satisfaction. And like that verse, Atashi Krishna Namadi. So Krishna's name, form, qualities are very, very difficult to understand. But when we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, by engaging our tongue in chanting the holy names and taking Krishna Prasad, then Krishna reveals himself. So this is the process. It's not a matter of some sort of academic education or academic understanding. We can't just read and think that now I know everything. No, we have to follow the process, and that is we perform the activities that please Krishna. And then Krishna says, those who are constantly devoted to me and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So we have to show that by our activities, by being constantly devoted and worshipping Krishna with love. This is actually the most important things. Constantly devoted means that it doesn't really matter how we feel. We still do it to please Krishna. It doesn't matter how we feel mentally, physically, if we feel like doing it or feel like we don't feel like doing it. We are constantly devoted. We endeavor constantly to please Krishna. And And it's not very easy because we have a mind and senses, and we may feel like, well, I don't feel like doing this today, or I feel like doing something else today. So we have to become constantly devoted, constantly endeavoring for perfection, constantly hearing about Krishna, constantly wanting to serve him. So the service actually is, because Prabhupada says devotional service, he didn't say bhakti is devotion, he says, it calls it devotional service, which means it's an activity. It's not just a thing, a noun. So it's an activity that if we love somebody, we want to serve them. This is actually natural. A mother serves her child constantly, because she loves the child. She'll stay up all night serving the child, because she has so much love for the child. So if we have love for Krishna, we'll constantly want to serve him. It's not that we'll just be an armchair philosopher and do nothing, just talking about it. There has to be some activity. There has to be some action to show how much we love Krishna. So constantly devote and worship me with love. Then Krishna within the heart, he destroys the nescience, the darkness born of ignorance, through the spiritual master and through Krishna in the heart, through the Bhagavatam. So there's Guru, Shastra and Sadhu. So by these three, ignorance is destroyed in the heart. Krishna, these are all Krishna's ways in which he helps us to destroy the ignorance in our heart. And then we can become more and more devoted to him. Is there any questions or comments?
I can't remember exactly what the references, but you were saying that we have to get rid of all the different desires that are there. So if we have a bucket list of things in our heart, the things that we want to do before we finish this life, and we don't finish that bucket list, then should we do that? Should we take off all the things that we still want to do so that we've finished them and that's it? Or is there another way that we can just get rid of the desires?
Well, we may have many, many desires, but we have to replace them with desires to serve Krishna. Like Dhruva Maharaj, he had the desire to become so, have planet greater than Lord Brahma, greater than his grandfather. So, but when he seen Lord Vishnu, then he didn't have any desire for it anymore. So he wasn't thinking, oh, now I want to still get that wealth that I wanted and all the opulence that I wanted. He just thought, I was just searching for broken glass and now I've received a diamond, So we need to serve Krishna. And when we serve Krishna, then all those desires they'll become insignificant. When we're pleasing Krishna, we may have a bucket load of desires, but when we please Krishna, then all those desires will just become insignificant. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to please Krishna and serve him in such a way that all these other desires will just become insignificant and we won't endeavor for them. And Krishna is very kind, because if we do have some desires, then he will fulfill them in such a way that we won't desire them again. So maybe at some point we will get those desires fulfilled, but then we won't even want them. We won't even need them. We won't be even bothered by them. So,
and the other one was about Maharaj Yudhisthira. He was able to accept quite easily and still be satisfied. So we see with great devotees that Krishna reveals what the plan is, what his plan is, and how they have to go through this and how this will happen eventually. So is that a given with devotees, great devotees? That's why they can so easily accept things, because they're aware of the bigger plan. Like Haridas Thakur knew that Ramachandra Khan was going to send a prostitute. And Arjuna, it was revealed to him that all these people are going to be killed anyway.
What was the question?
So the reason why Maharaj Yudhisthira was able to just accept things so easily was that because Krishna had revealed to him that he had a plan.
No, because there's a point in when he's in the forest, Maharaj Yudhishthira was like saying to one of the sages, so many things have happened. Is there anyone more unfortunate than me? Has anyone, lost so much like I have, And then there was somebody, Nala and Damayanti. So the sage told the story of Nala and Damayanti. So that because the sage was saying, well, at least you have your brothers. You have your wife and brothers in the forest. Nala and Damayanti they lost everything, and they lost each other as well. So he was describing. So Maharaj Yudhishthira wasn't thinking that, this is. He didn't see the bigger plan. He accepted what was the state in that time, but it wasn't like he knew exactly what was going to happen. He didn't know. So so in that way, he was just like although he knew that he was responsible, he would have to fight and he'd have to get the kingdom back and rule, because that's what Krishna wanted him to do. But he was still very forgiving and still very satisfied in the forest. From the Mahabharata, when we read it, we see that he's not so. But whereas Bhima was totally furious, he was just ready to fight. Actually, Bhima, when they went to the heavenly regions on earth, when he went to get the golden lotuses for Draupadi, at that time, and when Arjuna came back from the heavenly regions, when they met him up on the Himalayas, and it was such a heavenly region there, it was so nice. And Bhima was like, no, we have to go back down because this is such a nice place. We have to fight and we'll forget all those atrocities that have been done to us. So they all went back down because he wanted to remember everything so they could have the urge to fight to get back the kingdom. Because if they stayed there, they were like, it's such a nice place. They'd forget all their hardships and all the difficulties that they went through.
So is that okay?
Well, Bhima was like a real Kshatriya, so unless we're a Kshatriya, then we shouldn't try to imitate him. Bhima was, we have to have the qualities of a Kshatriya to imitate Bhima. Yes,
Thank you. This is a lovely class. I appreciate it. I just want to ask, you were saying we have to replace our material desires with spiritual desires for serving Krishna. Is there a danger that these desires to serve could also be tinged with some sort of a egotistic problem, like maybe our desire to serve Krishna might not be entirely like for Krishna's pleasure, it might be for our pleasure. If that can be the case, how do we recognize it and overcome it so we can serve appropriately?
So in the beginning, our desires will not be pure, they'll be impure. So the process is that we have to purify those desires. So it's like we may not have the pure desire to 100% please Krishna. We may want to please our senses as well, So the process is that we continue the process because it doesn't just happen overnight. So those desires we have, we purify them by performing devotional service. There's nothing else. It's not like a magical wand that gets, and then we're like, we have to practice. We have to go through the Narta Nivriti process and then come to the point of Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti Bhava. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to start developing pure devotional service at the very early stages,
Yeah, and so is a person in the early stages able to recognize if they have these tendencies, or can they be blinded by it? Say, for example, someone really wants to be involved in a lot of preaching work, and they maybe underneath there could be a desire for some sort of fame or recognition. Could that be, some sort of a problem, or is that okay? Should we just continue with that, or does it need to be recognized and dealt with?
Well, that will be there in general, like in the very beginning stages. So it's not, but the process is that we continue on doing it And we have to pray that we get free from these desire for recognition, fame, adoration, gain. And the process will purify us, by doing it. If we are sincere and serious about Krishna consciousness and devotional service, then the process will purify us so that our heart will become free from all these other desires. Because it's all dependent on our chanting, really. Most of it is depending on how we're chanting, because in the beginning, the offensive stage will be there. And everyone's going to go through the offensive stage of chanting, then Namabhas, and then finally Shuddhanam. So the offensive stage is that because we have all these other desires and we have pride and envy in the heart, then we're going to be going up and down, and that's unsteady devotional service. That's the offensive stage. So naturally it will be there, but if we continue on the process, if we're sincere and serious, Prabhupada always says sincere and serious. So we have to be that, and then the process will work. Whether we are aware of our Maya or not, that's why in the association of devotees, somebody else, another devotee, can point out our Maya, because when we're in Maya, we can't see it. See? So that's why we need the association of devotees, so that they can point it out that, okay, you're behaving like this isn't good, or your attitude is not correct, or you're looking for fame, adoration, gain, this isn't correct. We generally, somebody in Maya, they can't see that they're in Maya.
Sorry, just a follow-up to that. I'm sorry to take up so much of the time. We may run the risk of offending a devotee if we wish to approach something that might be difficult, that someone's in Maya, they have some attitude or some behavioral thing that could be improved. Do we just go ahead and say these things anyway, or do we ask somebody more senior, or do we just, like, out of fear of committing offence, not say anything?
No, well, you can take it to a senior devotee who can talk to the person, because it's maybe not in our place to say anything. So we're not an authority. So usually it's good if you can take it to somebody who's an authority and who's senior, and then they can tell that person. It's better that way, because we can commit offences, and also they may not take our correction nicely. So it's better if they're corrected from somebody they have more respect for. So that way we are safe, and they're safe from committing offences as well. Is that okay?
And so the Kanishta, he's either making offenses or he's taking offense quite a lot of the time. He feels like someone's offending him, or he's offending somebody else. So this slows down the process of getting free of unwanted things. And so the quicker that he's able to just respect everybody and appreciate them, maybe he distances himself a little bit from other Kanishtas, and he looks more for the association of the Madhyamas and the Uttama Adhikaris. So, and then he gets through that stage of anartha nivritti more quickly. But what slows down the process is that he's so preoccupied with either being offended or offending, and then this really compromises his quality of devotional service that he's rendering, and his ability to chant the holy names purely.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your class. I just have one question. So I understand that we should be satisfied with our material quota, like whatever we receive materially in this lifetime. whatever karma is, we are satisfied with that. Should we also be satisfied with serving Krishna and also serving Krishna's devotees?
No, so there's three things that we shouldn't be satisfied with, and that is our japa. And there's three things, right? We shouldn't be there's Janaka Pandit said there's three things we shouldn't be satisfied with: is japa, serving. I can't remember. I'll find it for you. But so we shouldn't be satisfied with our japa. We should always try to endeavor more to hear and chant more perfectly, and serving Krishna as well. We shouldn't be just satisfied with, well, I've done this today. We should always be endeavoring for more and more better service. And there was one more thing, giving in charity. I think that's also, yeah. Can you find that on your phone? It's Janaka Pandit who said it. And yeah, so some things we should, like, I think it's eating as well. Is it not? You found anything? No. I'll find it. But yeah, so we should always try to endeavor to do more better service, always better service, chant better, and please the devotees more, you know. Is that okay?
Another question. We were talking about the offenses. So is it equally bad for someone to make offenses, and at the same time for someone who is hearing offenses but not doing anything, like, you know, or like in blasphemy, or like
yeah, it's quite dangerous to hear, you know, not just to commit the offense, but to hear somebody offending another devotee. It's also very, very, it can destroy your bhakti lata bij to hear blasphemy. That's why if you're hearing blasphemy, you're supposed to leave that place immediately, or you're supposed to cut off the tongue of that person, or you're supposed to kill yourself or something like this, you know. So it's quite intense.
I think it was in first canto. I think I was reading as well.
Yeah, because just to hear blasphemy is so it can destroy your bhakti lata bij. So never mind committing an offense, but to hear somebody offending can be so, you know, destructive. It's a very bad thing. So unless you can defeat that person, you know, cut off their tongue, well, it's not very advisable, but not in this day and age. Yeah, the best thing is just to go away from that place, not hear it. Yeah, it's a tricky one, especially nowadays. Internet's full of it, you know. Internet's caused so much problems because it's like so much criticism, so many offenses have been committed over the internet, you know, and everyone's seeing all these conversations between one person and another, you know. It's just as bad, you know, just to get involved in all that, you know. Well, that's it.
Santosha Trishnakatavya Swadare Bhojanedane Santosha Trishnakatavya Swadaya Japa Dhanaya. One should be always satisfied. One should be always satisfied with these three things: their spouse, their food, and the amount of wealth they obtain. But one should never be satisfied with these three things: the amount of scriptural study they do, the amount of chanting japa, and the amount of charity they perform.
Okay, so there you are. Send it to read us. So now you know what you should be satisfied with and what we shouldn't be satisfied with. Yeah, so we shouldn't be satisfied with the spiritual things. We should be trying to endeavor more and more for them, but we should be satisfied with material things like our food that we're eating, the wealth we have, the external things. So, and that way, we'll cultivate more and more the spiritual side instead of the material side. Should we stop there because it's time? Okay, thank you. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai,
Yeah.
Iskon Govinda ki jai,
Yeah.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai,
Yeah.
Gaur Premanandi.
Yeah.
Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai.